And it also, I think, in a way, reflects life. Life is funny and dark at the same time, and it's rather odd the way that we tend to push dramatic representations into such strict genres.
I wanted to start with Florence Foster Jenkins. You've been somewhat less of a constant presence in the last few years, but this is a major part in a major movie opposite Meryl Streep. What made you decide to do this particular movie?
Well, you're right that You're right. I had kind of moved on a bit. I was doing other things. I was doing politics, and I seemed to have a child a week, and so I've not been very focused on show business over the last few years. But then Stephen Frears, who's a supporter of Hacked Off, the political stuff I've been doing, he just kept saying, "Oh, come on, let's do a film," and I thought he was just drunk, and then he, to my great surprise, sent me a script that was genuinely funny and moving, and I liked the sort of slight grotesque element of it, and it had this extraordinary, nuanced, complicated part for me, which is something I'm not accustomed to. And so I was, and plus he's a classy director, and the small matter of Meryl Streep, I had to do it.
The Florence Foster Jenkins, for those of you who don't know, is I first encountered her name on a list of the 10 least likely celebrities. An heiress who filled concert halls precisely because she could not sing a note. You mentioned you're very self-deprecating about the level of nuance that this role has. But do you really feel that way about a lot of your?
I really don't feel that way.
Okay, good.
I was just going for a cheap laugh. No, but it is a complicated role because you can't quite tell if he's good or bad, and I liked that. He doesn't fit into a easy goody-baddie kind of category, at least for a lot of the film, and I thought that would be fun, and yeah.
Was Meryl Streep? What was she like? I just picture her being born onto the set with a retinue of servants and, perhaps an entire team of people. And, is she intense?
Well, there's no retinue apart from Big Roy, who's been her makeup guy since 1974 or something.
Yeah.
Who's a great mine of fantastic showbiz stories and bitchiness. And apart from him, I didn't notice any retinue at all. But is she intense? Well, yes. I mean, I don't think you get to be that brilliant without enormous dedication. So that in itself is alarming. I mean, not just the scale of her talent, but the scale of that. It's quite a New Yorky thing, actually. I've come across it in New York actors before. It's a real, acting's a kind of quasi-religion. And, for the average English lovey who's, basically learn your lines and try not to bump into the furniture, dear, it's intimidating.
I did actually want to ask you about that. The whole idea of preparation. There is a school of thought, and I think it's become more prevalent probably since the 70s when De Niro was coming up, that if you're going to play a cab driver, you go out and get a hack license, or if you're going to play a boxer, you train for a year, and so forth. Have you ever done anything like that?
No. But and of course, the traditional British way is to slightly sneer at that, and then everyone quotes the Laurence Olivier, Dustin Hoffman story,
Oh, Marathon Man.
Yeah, and
Yes.
try acting, whatever it was. But I have found, I will say this, I think the Americans are right and we're wrong when it comes to film acting, definitely, without 100%. Because, over the years, doing productions where you've got English actors and then a couple of Americans, you notice it very much in rehearsal or the read-through. the English are giving it everything, lots of welly, darling, you know, and then the American just mutters like this, and there's almost nothing else. And you think, oh, come on, you know. And actually, I think they are dead right, because what they're doing is saving it up for the moment, you know, weeks later when there's actually film in the camera and they're in close-up. And because you only have a finite resource of freshness. And unfortunately, freshness is what the camera wants more than anything. And, you know, it hates well-rehearsed repeating of stuff, and it loves something absolutely minted in the moment. And that was one thing that Meryl was especially surprisingly brilliant at, is that every take, completely different performance. Whereas, you know, most of us are thinking, oh shit, I had a performance and I just give me one more take to do it again, and I'll do it slightly. But in fact, what's good about her, she completely makes it up again. I was very impressed by that.
What was your working relationship like? Did you have any rapport that you worked out? Any particular things that you had to iron out? Anything?
No. It helped when I realized that she couldn't see me at all. Because she's... I don't think I'm revealing anything she wouldn't reveal, but she's very short-sighted, but chooses... She's not wearing glasses in this film, character thing, and she doesn't like to wear lenses because the camera can pick them up. Right. So actually, even if you were Meryl Streep and I was Hugh Grant, I could be Denzel Washington and she wouldn't...
So you're just an impressionist blob of color to
Well,
Meryl
I
Streep.
don't know. I might be. I think, but she definitely... I mean, it's not to say she's acting in a vacuum, because she's listening very carefully. And you don't ever think she can't see me, but it's... yeah.
Let's travel in the Wayback Machine for a second, and let me ask you, how did you become an actor? How did you decide to become an actor?
Well, it was an accident, really, because I liked acting. I liked doing it at school and showing off and all the classic, you know, psychology of that. But I didn't plan to be an actor. But when I was at university, there was a guy who was a graduate there called Mike Hoffman, who went on to make films, and he put together an amateur film and said, oh, I need some actors, Hugh, because I'd done plays at Oxford. He said, would you act in it? And I said, no, I don't really think so. And he said, oh, come on, Victoria Studd's going to be in it, who was a really hot student. So I said, all right, and we did it, and I didn't think more about it. And after I graduated in that summer, I was off to do, at the end of the summer, I was going to go and do another degree at another university. We had a screening of this film, and very much to my surprise, at the end of it, agent said, do you want to be an actor? And I said, it's very nice of you, but not really. And then I thought, actually, that would be, I need some money, so I'll do that for a year. And then 1 year turned into 35.
So you weren't one of those kids who was doing constant pageants and reciting poems and things for your family or any of that sort of thing. This was...
Yeah, I did all that, yeah. But that's not quite the same as wanting to be a professional actor. Yeah. My recitations were always surprising to my parents, because what I didn't know was that I had a completely different accent at school than I had at home, because my school was not, contrary to what a lot of people think, a posh school at all. And my parents, for various reasons that's not their fault, had posh accents. So I had a posh accent at home. But when I was apparently reciting at school, they'd come and listen. It was, good afternoon, to smash him up. We're having tea. So it's like a cup. Yeah, I grew up with 2 accents and 2 personalities.
Were you were a bit of an athlete, weren't you, in school?
Well, yeah, I played rugby, and I was remarkably brave, really. No, I say it myself, but only I was brave out of cowardice, because I found that I spent the first couple of years avoiding tackling, and then I found that hurt more than if you tackled with incredible ferocity and violence. So I became a fierce tackler.
So you taught yourself bloodlust then?
Yes, a little bit.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I still like to hurt people.
I'll try to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
You went on to do probably your breakthrough. I was trying to think of what that would be. I guess Morris, maybe.
Yes.
James Ivory, who I just had the pleasure of interviewing a couple of weeks ago. He still speaks very highly of you.
That's very nice.
And
yeah.
You shared the prize of the Venice Film Festival with James Trilby.
Wilby
for that
yes.
for that performance.
Yes.
And that wasn't that the up to the next level after that for you?
Yes, and then very quickly down from that level.
What happened?
Well, I was a bit of a slag and just accepted everything that came along, including some quite dodgy miniseries and things like that. And I hadn't learned the lesson that if you've got a reputation for a second of doing quality stuff, you've got to keep the quality up. And so I let the quality sink, and I had to have another boost, for weddings to make everything pick up again. You
made some really interesting movies between those two, though, like Impromptu. I see you're like, oh God, please don't bring up Lair of the White Worm, but I just did. Were there any of those that you enjoy that you would watch again that you would recommend?
Well, I think if I was very drunk or smoked a lot of pot, I would definitely watch The Lair of the White Worm. I mean, that is the stoner's absolute favourite film, which Ken Russell, and I play an RAF officer who, I don't know what I do. I cut people in half who turn into worms and things like that. And I suppose I could watch that for a laugh, but I don't really watch anything I've done very much.
You began with 4 Weddings and a Funeral to cultivate and have offered to you this persona that we now think of as a Hugh Grant sort of persona on screen. But before that, I was so surprised to see that aspect of you come forth, because in movies like Impromptu, you were the pursued. You were more, I guess you would say, I wouldn't go so far as to say passive, but you're definitely not. Judy Davis is a whirlwind in that.
Yeah. She is. She's the man, and I'm very much the innocent little flower that she's trying to deflower.
Was that a case of just, I try to ask actors this every time I talk to them. How does it happen that you are known for a particular thing, and then there will be a phase of your career where you're known for another particular thing, and then there will be yet another, and I always wonder how much control do you have over it? How much foresight is there? Is there a design, or is it just cosmic forces randomly?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, with me, the lovely thing about 4 Weddings coming along was that it was comedic, and I had the only thing I felt I was remotely useful in terms of acting was if there was some jokes around. I was quite good at knowing where they are and trying to bring them out. And I, concurrent with that whole career I'd had up till then, doing films and television, I'd had a comedy show with 2 friends, which was my real source of pride and passion. And so when I went off to do these films, which were rather serious, I put on my serious face as best I could. But really, I thought I'd be more comfortable with a few jokes around. And so that was the good thing about 4 Weddings. I felt like I'm more doing something that I can do, which other people can't do. Whereas if it's deep, dark, Strindberg, Ray Fiennes will do that better. So, to a certain extent, it's not typecasting, it's just doing what you're best at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you were shooting 4 Weddings and a Funeral, or for that matter, when you're working on any film, is there a point where you think this could actually work? Where you have a good feeling about it and you don't think you're just being unreasonably optimistic?
Well, I certainly thought that when I read that script. It was a bizarrely brilliant script. I remember calling my agent and saying, I think there's been a mistake because you sent me a good script. Which happened one more time in my career when they sent me Jerry Maguire. And they said, yes, sorry, there was a mistake. That was meant to go to Tom Cruise. But with 4 Weddings, I thought the script was good and stood a good chance. But we were all pessimists. And when we cut the film together, it was a rough cut. Looked at it, me, Mike Newell, the producers, we all thought, Richard Curtis all thought it was an abomination. and
Really?
we wanted to emigrate. And
Why did you think that? You just
it just didn't look like it was funny or clever or interesting, and then they took it to Santa Monica and had a screening, and everyone went mad for it. And so it just we were wrong, and the audiences were right.
And that was the beginning of what I think of as phase 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
And then you're doing things like 9 months for a Hollywood studio.
Well, I did. I suddenly had the world at my feet, bizarrely out of absolutely nowhere, and I took forever to choose something to do. And I remember driving my agents absolutely insane because I didn't really want to do anything. And then this project of Christopher Columbus's came along, and I did it, and I very nearly ruined it. I did pretty much ruin it. I mean, he's a genius, really. Mrs. Doubtfire and Home Alone and those things. He's a genius at what he does. And there's brilliant people in that film. Julianne Moore and Tom Arnold and all those people, Jeff Goldblum. And I just, I don't know why. I think I panicked, having been paid £20,000 or whatever it was to do 4 weddings and a funeral. If you're suddenly paid millions, you think, well, I better ramp up my performance by 200 times, but all that means is you overact grotesquely, which is what I did. So I'm always very apologetic to those people.
When you look back on that period, do you think are there any parts of it that you would save in terms of your
which part?
The post 4 weddings and funeral.
Yes, no, there's some good films. Well, I did. There was some that I signed up for before 4 Weddings came out. So, An Awfully Big Adventure is a good film,
yes.
Also directed by Mike Newell, and The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill is a charming film, and well, I liked The Thriller. No one else went to see it, but Extreme Measures I'm quite proud of. No, there's plenty in there, and of course Notting Hill's. People like that.
Notting Hill is fascinating, especially if you watch it right after 4 weddings and a funeral, because I've developed this sort of, I guess I would say, grand unifying theory of Hugh Grant, and one part of that is that starting at sometime in the mid '90s, your films start to seem like autobiographical in the sense that they're as much about fame and responsibility as they are the story that they're telling. Yeah, sorry. Sorry to lay that on you without warning. But Notting Hill particularly, because the Julia Roberts character in that movie is the person who is besieged by the paparazzi, can't have a moment's peace, every move she makes is scrutinized, and you're playing the average guy. You're playing the ordinary guy, which is why she's attracted to you, but I wonder if you weren't feeling some of the same things that she was feeling, that her character was feeling at that point in your career.
Well, I suppose I had some experience of that. Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to put a pin in your theory, but I don't.
Oh, please do.
No, but that wasn't the reason I did that film. I did that film just because, well, for the same reason as any other film I've done, is literally because it's the best script on the table at that moment, and this one happened to be Notting Hill. It happened to be with a brilliant premise. I mean, you can sometimes tell with the one-line pitch line. And when it's, nobody bookseller falls in love with most famous woman in the world, it's great. I want to see that film instantly.
Can I ask you a really geeky question about that movie?
Yes.
Oh, good. If you'd said no, I don't know what I would have done. There's a section in that movie where after You Can't Be with Julia Roberts Anymore, where they chart the passage of 1 year, and you're walking through a marketplace and you see the seasons changing. How was that scene done?
Well, analog. Old-fashioned way, with props guys with brain machines and throwing snowflakes at you.
There was no digital in that.
I don't think we had digital in 1998, or if it was in its infancy. I remember a lot of polystyrene in my throat and eyeballs. And
I wanted to talk to you about A Boy, which is a film I gather you're fond of as well.
Yes.
This is a movie that you, now correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you acquire the rights to that novel long before you were able actually to make it? Is that true?
I think I tried.
And then De Niro got hold of it before you did, or something? Or?
Yes, I think that's right. De Niro had it. But previous to that, Ian Softly was going to make it, and he didn't want me. Ha! So when it went into turnaround with his version, the lovely Whites brothers came on board, and it was I think it was with New Line, and yeah, we set it up completely differently. And then New Line decided they didn't want it at the last moment, so I went to my old Cozy Friends working title, and that's how we made it.
Now, this is not a funny ha-ha movie all of the time, this movie. And this is something, I feel like this might be one of the kinds of films that you, maybe as a leading actor, are always on the lookout for, where you have, the character has more than one layer to them. And there are some challenges implicit in that. It's not just, you know, you can be funny, but there may be some things that you don't know for sure that you can do. And
Yeah. Well, it's a lovely place to be, at least for me. It's a very comfortable place to be when there's jokes, there's dark and light notes in the same place. I was saying to you backstage earlier, apart from anything else, if the joke doesn't work, you can always pretend it was meant to be a serious scene in those dromedaries, as they're known. And yeah, it really does take the pressure off the comedy. It takes the pressure off it takes the heaviness out of the serious bits. So it's a nice tone, and it also, I think, in a way, reflects life. You know, life is funny and dark at the same time, and it's rather odd the way that we tend to push dramatic representations into such strict genres.
Do you ever wish that you had been more of a sort of stereotypically dramatic actor, where you're, you know?
No, not really, because I sound like a terrible old cliche, but comedy is hard, and it's hard because really it's binary. It's either funny or it's not funny. People either go ha ha or they don't. Whereas with drama, you're dealing in infinite shades of grey, and that's actually quite relaxing. It's true, of course, you can be more moving or less moving, but there's something absolutely terrifying about will they laugh or will they not laugh, and it can be down to such tiny, tiny things, tiny increments of performance, tiny increments of camera position, editing, the music you put behind a scene. I've known scenes which get huge laughs in previews, and then you experiment and you change the music that's on the jukebox in the background in the bar, and suddenly they don't laugh again, and it's very delicate.
I'm fascinated by this because there is a sense that we think of the great films, we think of the serious films, and we think of the dramas. And if you look at the types of films that win awards, I believe the last movie to win Best Picture that was basically a comedy was Annie Hall.
What about that silent movie?
I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Would you count that as a comedy? I don't know.
I can't remember really. I think so. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. And why is that? You know, why is that? Why do we think seriousness, darkness equals quality?
Why is comedy not taken seriously, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, but I think people do admire it and they like it. It's just for some reason we have to applaud death and misery. I was on the American Academy panel to shortlist Best Foreign Language Film this year, and just after Christmas, and they put you in basically a cinema for 5 days and show you 15 films from around the world, and you're supposed to reduce the list to 5 or 7 or what it is now, and about 8 of them were about the Holocaust because countries have worked out, each country gives one film and they've worked out that is their best chance of getting a nomination.
This is actually true.
Yeah, there was something a little dispiriting about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Good though they were, many of them.
Yes. But comedies, when done well, stick with people. They stick with people.
I hope so. And I just keep making the point. It's not easy. Those things are not easy. Light is quite difficult to achieve, you know.
You've often been compared, I don't want to embarrass you, but here we are, to Cary Grant. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Were you a fan of his growing up? Did you draw anything from him?
No.
Next question.
Well, no, no. I mean, when Four Weddings came out, people kept asking that question, mainly because I have the same name. And to be... it was an embarrassing question because, to be honest, I'm not very cine literate, or at least I certainly wasn't then. And I didn't really know Cary Grant very well. But since then, I have watched his stuff. And, of course, he's just a massive genius. And now I find the question, deeply embarrassing. Yeah.
I withdraw it then.
Okay, good.
What movie stars did you admire growing up? Are there any that you still look to as inspiration?
Well, it didn't really work like that. And I don't remember being inspired. The ones I revered were not the kind of actors that I can ever emulate, because we don't really work in precisely the same kind of genre. So it would be, De Niro and Pacino, and it was Goodfellas and The Godfather and Once Upon a Time in America. And we loved, me and my British friends, we loved all that kind of gangs and death and darkness. And but as I say, I've never been offered one of those films, and I've never really understood why.
Well, you got to do Mickey Blue Eyes.
Yes, I did. Maybe that's why we made it. Yeah.
You had actually one of the, I wrote this down because I liked it so much, a quote about you in that film from Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times. He said, he was reviewing Mickey Blue Eyes, and he said, if Hugh Grant had been on the Titanic, fewer lives would have been lost. If he'd accompanied Robert Scott to the South Pole, the explorer would have lived to be 100. That's how good Hugh Grant is at rescuing doomed adventurers.
Well, that's the definition of his feelings, because I feel he's being nice about me as an actor, but I feel sad as a producer of that film. And anyway, that film has, I personally feel it has many flaws, but it also has 2 or 3 scenes which are still make me laugh to this day.
I'm actually laughing just thinking about it, because I think if you put the phrase high concept is bandied about a lot, but I feel like Hugh Grant in an American gangster film, that's about as high concept.
Well,
as
that was the joke,
Yes, and it never gets old for me anyway.
Yeah, good.
But you have played these sorts of parts once in a while that I think are more of those transformational parts, like Cloud Atlas.
Yeah.
Which I can only imagine what that experience was like. Were you playing characters across multiple time zones?
Yeah.
Heavy makeup in some cases.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, just that during this phase of really not doing very many films, occasionally oddities come up that are just too fascinating to turn down. And this one, the Wachowski brothers, now sisters,
Indeed.
Came up with this project and wanted me to play 6 baddies in 6 different time zones. And it was so fascinating. Actually, it was 5. And I went to meet them, and I said, I'll do it if you give me a 6th one. There was a role that I really liked, and they gave it to me, and I kind of enjoyed it. I didn't realize what prosthetic makeup meant. I didn't enjoy sitting in makeup for 6 hours every day, having plastic applied to my face. But I thought in 5 of the roles I was pretty good, and in one of them I was shocking. I thought I was very bad as the cannibal in the post-apocalyptic world.
I actually liked that.
Oh, well, good.
I thought it was, I imagine this is what you would have been like in a Mad Max film.
Yeah, maybe. But I'd sort of assumed I could do it, and then I remember just standing on a mountaintop with no hair and tattoos, and I was supposed to lick my lips ready to eat a human being. And I thought, I can't do this, I need a witty line here. And one of the Wachowskis kept saying, come on, man, more like a panther. You're really hungry.
It's good to motivate your actors, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yes. Let me. I wanted to throw out just a few general questions, just to see what you might have to say about them. What is your comfort food film? What is the film that you watch when you cannot decide what else to watch?
Goodfellas. I think there are very few films I watch more than once, and they all tend to be to do with organized crime.
What member of your family probably most influenced you as an actor?
Oh, my mum. The rest of them can't act at all. But my mum was a good mimic. She did good, funny voices, and yeah. So if any ability I have comes from her for sure, and got me into a lot of trouble at school because I was endlessly imitating teachers and things. Yeah.
When your kids are old enough to appreciate the fact that Daddy is in a movie, what movie do you show them first?
I
If you
can't
can
get
control
them
it.
interested in any of my stuff. I chain them to chairs and try and show them. They've got shocking taste. They want to watch Fireman Sam, for Christ's sake. But, no, I don't think they don't. I think they think that everyone's daddy is on the side of buses. You know, they don't.
If you could save one of your movies, the negative of one of your movies from a fire, what would it be?
Well, this is I actually.
Except for Florence Foster Jenkins.
Well, it would be that or About a Boy, but then it would be one of those two. But I suppose we'd have to go with About a Boy because that has a negative, whereas.
I think we have time for just a couple of questions, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Is anybody? Here we go.
I hear we get to see you dance in this film. And I'm just curious, and I was curious after seeing Love
otherwise I can't
Actually.
No, sorry. I'm the opposite of Meryl.
Do you ever ad-lib when you do these dances?
The dances.
Yes.
Yes, very much so. I pride myself on my choreography. I claim that in music and lyrics, I invented that dance that became a sensation all over the Far East. What was it called? Something Man. What was it? What he was doing? What? What? Gangman. I invented Gangman style in music and lyrics. Yeah.
Sorry to jump in on this, Mr. Grant. Mr. Curtis tells me that during Love Actually, when you do your improvised little dance, that was not initially a fun experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, only that he kept wanting me to rehearse it, and I was too frightened, so I kept making excuses, and it was never rehearsed until we shot it. And then, that's not easy, you know. It's not easy at 7 a.m. If you're a cross middle-aged Englishman, suddenly you start wiggling your arse in front of a stone-cold sober. It's an appalling experience.
Actually, same movie. We used to watch, when we were kids, we had White Christmas. Every Christmas was the movie. We all sat down as a family. Now, we sit down and watch Love Actually. Do you think it's a... Well, the audience obviously thinks it's a very worthy successor. How do you feel?
That's very nice. And, what horrifies me about Love Actually is how good Colin's story is. And I never like anything good to happen to Colin. And but the last time I watched that film, I found his story profoundly moving. I might have shed a tear.
My friend and I were noticing that almost every English actor we revere has been in one of the Harry Potter movies yet. Was that a conscious thing, or it just happened?
They did come to me about one part in one film. And I can't honestly remember why I turned it down. Well, actually, I can, and I can remember the part. No, I can't. We'll go for a drink. I'll tell you.
We are actually featuring BAFTA New York are doing a rooftop screening of 2 Weeks' Notice. And I would ask, there's an amazing chemistry between you and Sandra Bullock. It looked like it was a lot of fun. Was it actually fun, or was that the best acting you've ever done?
It's unquestionably marvellous acting. But No, oddly enough, you're right. I adored Bullock. We had a lovely time, and yes, I miss her, really. I remember getting back from the world tour of publicising that film and walking around my kitchen thinking, I'm sad, I miss Sandy. She's, I don't know if you ever had her here, but she's a laugh.
She's not British.
What? Oh, no, she's a filthy German.
Yes. More reason to have her here.
I saw Florence last week, and what I really loved is your expression while she's singing. How hard was that? Did you ever crack up, and what was your first impression on hearing her voice?
Well, you're right. It is irresistibly funny what Meryl does, and she had a kind of sillyometer for her bad singing, and sometimes she'd set it at 1, and sometimes, very often actually, when she wasn't on camera, I think almost deliberately to make us all laugh, the ones who were on camera, she'd turn it up to 11 or 12, and I did struggle. There was a scene in that film where I have to be very fierce to the people who are laughing at her at a concert, and kind of I give them hard stares and tell them off. But in fact, I am absolutely killing myself laughing inside. It was a real struggle.
Would you thank the great Hugh Grant and Matt Solar Sykes? And I'm going to lead you off stage. Hugh Grant, Matt Solar Sykes.
Thank you very much. You're very nice. Thank you.
At the same time, if you're doing stuff that's a little bit more technical, a little bit more visually flary like Sherlock is, and obviously Star Trek and very much Smaug in mocap, you kind of have to go the distance of understanding it in order not to hurt yourself, primarily, and also just to make it work, make the shot work, make the moment work.
We were in a world where Broadchurch had already been a sort of international thing. And with Grace Point, we set out very consciously to tell the same story because, someone did the maths, or the math, sorry.